Hello everyone, this is Direwolf20 and welcome to a brand new mod spotlight. Today, taking a look at Deep Resonance. Deep Resonance is a mod by McJady, the author of RF Tools Dimensions, RF Tools Controls, and it's basically a mod about generating energy in the form of RF. There are crystals which are stored in the ground and resonating ores, and you use these to basically power a multi-block style generator that has some side effects. There's a lot of stats that you can get with your different energy attributes, and you can have crystals that have a really long duration, that last a really long time, generate large amounts of RF. But the crystals in the resonating ore themselves are relatively rare, so you really want to put a lot of effort towards purifying and making these fluids as good as possible for powering your generator. So this mod spotlight will cover everything you need to know about how to use Deep Resonance. Let's get started. Let's start with world gen. There are two types of blocks that you'll find in the world. First off, you'll find resonating crystals. These are, in fact, pretty rare, and they'll have random stats assigned. Because I grabbed these out of JEI, they have the same stats, which are just 1% of each type, but they'll have a small amount of power, a small amount of strength, efficiency, and purity. These crystals aren't that great for using in your generator, and we'll see how to do that in a bit, but they do serve a little bit of a purpose that we'll check out soon. Definitely grab them when you can find them, because they will be useful for you. Trust me on that. The other thing that you'll find in the world is resonating ore. This stuff in the form of ore is what you're going to melt down into a liquid form and use to power your generators. So what do we do with this awesome resonating ore that we just found? Well, we go ahead and place it in a smelter. Smelters require some RF energy to power. So make sure you have some kind of machine nearby, like a capacitor bank, to power some of the things that are going to be required here. And you'll also want to hook this thing up with some conduits, because there's going to be a little bit more that needs power. Cool? So the smelter will receive power here, and it's really easy. It's about 30 resonating ore that you'll get turned into the liquid crystal that you need. So the first thing you're going to want to do is have some form of RF power. You can get RF power from some of the crystals you find in the world, but in my opinion, that's not the best use for them. But if it's all you got, it's all you got. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys what to do first with the resonating ore, and that is to craft a smelter. A smelter is pretty easy to make. You just need a machine frame, you need some nether brick, and you need some resonating plates, which are made by smelting in a vanilla furnace resonating ore. That gets you 8 resonating plates, and these are used for a lot of things throughout the mod, so that's pretty much a crafting component that you're going to want to use throughout the mod for a lot of different things. Once you've gone ahead and crafted your smelter, go ahead and place it in the world and give it some RF power. Then you're going to want to get a tank. The tanks are what store the liquids, the resonating crystal liquid, that is going to be created by the smelter. So basically the smelter melts down your resonating ore into resonating crystal liquid. But this liquid is special in that it has some unique stats to it, which we'll cover in a minute. You're going to want to store this in the deep resonance tanks so that you can manipulate those stats. So don't use tanks from another mod. I recommend definitely using the tanks from Deep Resonance. Place that on top of the smelter, and then place some resonating ore inside. Finally, in order to get this thing really cruising, you're going to need to give it some heat. And with that, you're going to need some lava. Now, there's a little bit of a nuance to this. And if you read in the smelter section of the Deep Resonance manual, you'll find out that the lava in the tank needs to be filled between 40 and 60% for the best efficiency. We'll talk about the efficiency of the liquid in a minute. But long story short, if you give it too much liquid lava, it will reduce the quality of the crystal liquid that you're about to get. And then if you don't give it enough lava, it might slow down the operation, and you might also not get the best efficiency. So keep that lava level inside the tank between 40 and 60%. So we're going to go ahead and put that in there. And before I go ahead and fill this up, I'm going to make sure this thing stays at around 50% lava. So as indicated, you're going to want to keep this between around 40 to 60%. And I've just done a little bit of automation to make that happen. Let's go ahead and put 30 resonating ore in here. You'll see this start cooking up. The resonating ore will rapidly break down into a liquid, and that liquid will be stored in the tank above. These tanks are multi-blocks, by the way, so you can go ahead and expand them. And there we go. Now it can hold 32, or it can hold 48 or 64. You get the gist, right? So they are multi-blocks, and you can see that we're getting 100% quality because we went ahead and made sure that this stayed between 40 and 60% lava. We're getting about 10% purity, strength, and efficiency. So what do these stats mean? Well, they're going to affect the overall crystal that you get at the end of this process. And each of these stats has a different effect on the crystal, and it determines how much power you get and what total amount, what RF per tick you get, that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and flip through the book real quick to take a look. So crystal attributes, it says here, there are 4. Strength is the inherent strength of the crystal. Pretty much as much power as it contains, right? So in total, this crystal can generate, over the course of its entire life, 10,000 RF, a million RF, 100 million RF, something like that, right? So the higher the strength, the total amount of energy that the entire lifespan of this crystal before it gets burnt out will be able to produce. The efficiency just pretty much changes the RF per tick. So whether it'll create 100 RF per tick or 1,000 RF per tick, and the different stats there, those are all the efficiency. The purity is how clean it is. Now, I mentioned earlier in the spotlight that there's going to be some radiation and some negative effects on the environment from running these generators. There's ways to contain the radiation using special blocks that the mod provides, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But pretty much the more pure the crystal is, the less radiation there's going to be spilling out into the environment. Okay, and then the final stat, which is not represented on the screen here, is the power. And that, once we see it, and you can see it on the tooltip here, it's called power left. It's pretty much how much left in the crystal, right? So if we kick on the generator, when we first create a crystal, it'll be 100, and as we run it, it'll drop down 99, 98, and then when it gets to 0, the crystal's burnt out, and you have to go ahead and get yourself a new crystal. You'll also notice a quality stat here. Pretty much the quality indicates how good the crystal was when it got melted down by the smelter. So you want your quality to be at 100%, or it will affect how good the other stats can be. And pretty much you can affect quality after you melt the crystal. So make sure that you're keeping this around 40 to 60%, because if you're not, then your quality will start to drop. So the next machine you're going to want to build in your production line for your crystals here, and you can see my quality dropped because I put a little too much liquid in there. I didn't perfectly test the automation on this thing. So like I said, if you have too much lava inside your tank on the bottom here, your quality will suffer. We're not going to worry too much about that right now. So the purifier is the next machine that you're going to want to get. This will purify the liquid, and the only stat that this affects is the purity. This does not change your strength, and it does not change your efficiency. This will purify the liquid and make it so that it has less of a negative effect on the environment when you go ahead and activate your generator with the crystal you produce. So in order for this to work, all you do is first craft the purifier, nice and easy, and then make yourself some filter material. You're going to need sand, gravel, and either coal or charcoal. This goes into the center slot. Then all you need to do is pump the liquid from over here directly into the top tank. So a tank goes on top and a tank goes on the bottom. So let's go ahead and pump that over. Now, one other thing you're going to want to do is right-click the side of your tanks to affect whether or not they can output liquids or input liquids. So when they're blue, they're going to go ahead and accept liquids. And if they're orange, they're going to provide liquids, like so. And I'm going to go ahead and make this one blue. These will connect. It won't automatically push the liquids out, though. So go ahead and, let's see, this is the north side. So we will say auto extract always active. There we go. And the liquid will go directly into the tank. Cool. Now you'll notice there's about 6,000 fluid in there, and it's starting to purify. Now the filter materials are going to get used up, and it's going to spit them out into the world. You can avoid having them land in the world by having a chest adjacent to the block. And then the spent filter material will go into the chest instead of spit out into the world. Pretty cool. And you'll notice that our purity went from 10% to about 35%. Not bad. It should also be noted that if you don't place a tank beneath the purifier, it'll automatically purify itself and put it back into the tank above. This is probably better because it'll continuously purify the liquid in the tank above it and eventually get it up to the limit that the purifier can do, which is 85%. Now you'll also notice, and if I take this out here, as liquids get purified, remember we were getting that up to 35%, in the first go, right? So each liquid that got purified got up to 35%. When liquids in tanks and deep resonance mix, all their stats kind of equalize out and balance out. So if we go ahead and set this to insert and this to extract, and we set this guy to extract, notice this is at 35% purity and this is at 14.5. If we go ahead and let this extract into here, it kind of mixes together and comes up to a total of about 20%. Cool. So we're going to go ahead and let this stuff purify off camera for a little bit, and then we'll come back to see the total end result. So you'll note that my purity has now gotten close to 85%. With the purifier, the best purity you can get is around 85%. However, because our quality did not meet 100% because of the not making this thing always stay between 40 and 60, we're not going to be able to reach that 85% mark. Okay, so if quality was at 100, the best purity we could hope for was right around 85%. Notice, like I said, strength and efficiency aren't affected. Now, how do we get this liquid out of here? There's a good tool that we can use. And I'm going to go ahead and move this oak chest. You'll also notice we used a little bit more than a stack of filter material to filter this stuff down. So the next block to show you guys is called the valve. The valve is going to help us to transfer liquids from one tank to another based on certain conditions. So I'm going to make this a multi-block tank. Cool. So now we can see that there's still 6,000 liquid in there out of a total of 32 available to be transferred. And we'll place a valve next to this guy. A valve will transfer liquid from the tank above it to the tank below it based on certain attributes. And those attributes can be defined in the UI here. So first off, we can specify whether a redstone signal is needed. We can specify the amount of purity, strength, and efficiency, the minimum amount of which we need in order for this to be transferred. So for example, if we wanted to make sure this stuff wasn't sent down until we hit 85% purity, but we didn't care about the strength, so we'll just leave it 5% for now. And we'll say at max, 6,000 millibuckets is what we want to transfer. We should see that this will not move. Nothing's happening because we're not at 85% purity, okay? In this case, we're gonna go ahead and change that to 84% and hit apply, and you'll notice that immediately it starts sending the liquid from the tank above to the tank below. So with this setup, you can pretty much automate the purifier by having the liquid go into the top, specifying this to be around 84 or 85, and the purifier here, make sure to keep it stocked with filter material. Once this stuff purifies, it'll eventually drop into the tank below, and we'll know that we have some pretty good crystal liquid ready to go. The next step in this process is optional. At this point, or even before we filtered it, we could have made a crystal. It would have been a really bad crystal because it would have only had 10% efficiency, but this is probably a decent place to make a crystal. In fact, why don't we make one now, and then we'll go ahead and see what the next attribute will look like if we bump up the strength and efficiency. So with an 85% pure crystal, 10 strength and efficiency, we could go ahead and get ourselves the crystallizer. The crystallizer goes on top of a tank, like this, and it needs some energy. So we'll go ahead and feed into the energy system that we already created. Okay, and all you need to do is place the liquid crystal in the tank below. So I'm going to allow this to flow in. And we'll see that this thing starts running and it starts crystallizing. It needs, you guessed it, 6,000 liquid crystal, or 30 ores, in order to purify up to a single crystal. So let's go ahead and let this thing run. And we just got ourselves a resonating crystal. Hooray! So we can see that it's got a strength and efficiency of 10% and a purity of around 84.37. The power left is 100 because we haven't used it yet. Next step, let's get a generator and start creating power. So to kickstart this thing, we simply place the generator controller in the world. We're going to want to place a generator nearby, and we're going to want to place an energy collector on it. Now, we can use this as a multi-block. More generators allow more crystals to be fed into the system, but for now we're going to go with just one. Let's go ahead and place the resonating crystal nearby, and make sure we have somewhere for this generator to send the power to. So let's go ahead and hook up the energy conduit, and we'll place an empty capacitor nearby. Simply apply a redstone signal to the generator controller, and the generator kicks on. You'll notice that it's telling you here that we've got about 99% power left, and this is generating 1,692 RF per tick. Not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. Nice. However, we're also creating radiation. So let's go ahead and take a look at the radiation monitor. Uh-oh, we're already generating large amounts of radiation, and you can see that because my hunger bar is showing that I'm getting a little bit hungry. Turning off the generator will start to lower the radiation, and radiation spreads out into the chunks nearby. So you can see that further away from the generator there's not quite so much radiation, there's a small amount over here, and there's a large amount right nearby. Other negative effects will occur if you leave your generator running and don't protect yourselves. You'll notice here that radiation indicates that there's a bunch of nasty things that can happen. Trust me when I say hunger is the least of your worries. In the generator instruction manual, you'll note that a single block of a generator supports up to 2 crystals and a maximum of 10,000 RF per tick. If you are generating more than 10,000 RF per tick, you'll want to extend the multi-block by adding another generator to it. This can now support up to 4 crystals and 20,000 RF per tick, and it obviously extends from there. Now you'll remember that I specified that some of the crystals you find in the world can have different stats available on them, and sometimes they'll have low amounts of power. And I'm going to use one like that to show you what happens once the crystal runs out of energy. So if we activate this crystal right here, you'll see that it starts to drain pretty rapidly, and eventually it burns out, and it turns white. The generator is no longer producing RF, and it's not really doing anything, and the crystal's pretty much burnt out. At this point, you can harvest it. It's going to be useful in a moment. There's another way to automate harvesting these, by the way, and that is by using the pedestal. The pedestal will automate harvesting of the crystals. Let's go ahead and get another low power one. So simply place the pedestal in the world, and make sure it's got a good crystal sitting inside of it, and it'll automatically place it for you. Nice. Also, if a crystal's almost dead, it'll go ahead and pick it up for you and place it in a nearby chest. So this crystal should burn out pretty quickly. It'll be picked up by the pedestal, placed in the adjacent chest, and the new crystal that's inside will be placed in front of it. Let's see what happens. Ta-da! Nice. So what good are these burnt out crystals? Well, we haven't yet seen how to extend the strength and efficiency of crystals, and that's what we're going to look at now. We're going to need to use the laser. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to go ahead and get myself another set of fluid. So let's get 30 more ore cooked up, and we'll come back once it's been turned into liquid. And our liquid crystal has now reached an 85% purity mark, and you can see it's all dumping into this tank. Nice. So to make this setup work, place a lens on the side of the tank that you want to interact with, and go ahead and place an infusing laser 1 block away. Next, open up the infusing laser UI. You'll notice there's a few things missing. First off, we need power, so let's make sure to hook that up. Next up, we need some of this blue bar. This is the catalyst that's going to help you to go ahead and change the different stats on your liquid. You can affect purity, strength, and efficiency. So first off, you need to put spent crystals in here, and that'll give you a small amount of this bar. So that's what you can use your spent crystals on. You can also use the crystals that you find in the world. Nice. And I think it's true that the better stats of the crystals give you better growth here, but I'm not 100% sure if that's true. But pretty much this blue bar will be used up to go ahead and affect the attributes of these crystals. So the crystals you find in the world will be best used here, and also any spent crystals. So usually your first crystal that you make won't have the greatest stats, but then you can, use the spent up crystal for the next crystal to have even better ones. Cool. So last up, we need a catalyst. So what is that all about? So there's JEI integration here. You can just go to the infusing laser and hit U to see all the uses of the infusing laser. Nice. So we can see all the different items we can put in there. So for example, ender pearls will increase the purity at a rate of 2% per 500 millibuckets of RCL crystal. So basically, if you had 500 millibuckets in there, it would increase the purity by 2%. But we have more than 500. We have 6,000. So it's not going to be 2% for every ender pearl you put in. You'll also notice this if we went ahead and threw some ender pearls into the laser. It'll tell you right here what it's going to do. So 2%, up to a cap of 100. So the best purity that the ender pearls can get you up to is 100. Strength and efficiency, there's no effect on it. So let's give it a shot. Simply apply a redstone signal, and Shot a little laser in there, and we can see our purity went up to 85.2%. Cool. So a small amount of an increase. Okay. Diamonds will increase it by 5, and emeralds will increase it by 8. So emeralds are really nice. Sweet. Let's go ahead and do that again. 85.9% purity. Great. This is awesome. Let's go ahead and take a look at some other stats. So if we took a look at the laser again, we can see that there's other things. We can get dimensional shards from RF tools that will increase the purity by a little percent, and strength and efficiency go up pretty good. Gunpowder gives you a lot of strength, a bit of efficiency, but it loses purity. That's bad. We can see prismarine crystals do pretty nice. Prismarine shards do all right. Blaze powder is nice for strength and efficiency. Remember though, purity can be fixed by throwing it back in the filter, and that's usually what you're going to want to do. Gas tiers, a lot of strength and efficiency, but a large loss in purity. Nice. I don't know why you would ever use a slime ball. It seems like that's pretty bad. You don't want to do that. Diamonds, glowstone. So these are all the stats, right? So basically, you pick a material and you decide which one you want to use. Nether stars are pretty nice. They bump your strength and efficiency up by 90%. Again, per 500 millibuckets. So keep that in mind. But you lose a large amount of purity. Okay. So let's go ahead and just try a nether star, for example. Okay, we'll pop one in there, activate the laser, and we can see strength and efficiency went up a lot, purity went down quite a bit. Now, if your purity ever hits 0, it's going to wind up destroying liquid. So you're going to want to make sure to stop this process when your purity gets low, like around 10% or so, and then you can throw it back over here and re-purify it. So the process is to basically bump your strength and efficiency up as much as possible and then re-purify it over here. Let's go ahead and take care of some of this now. I'm going to throw a few nether stars in there just to get our strength and efficiency up to a good point. Nice. Maybe a couple more. Remember, don't let that purity drop too low. Now, at this point, if I wasn't cheating, I would probably filter it again to get it to 85%, but instead, I'm going to go ahead and throw a bunch of emeralds in there and let it purify itself with emeralds. It'll probably be a little bit faster to do that. So we'll come back in a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and get my crystallizer. Trust me when I say you don't want to actually make a crystal with such low purity, but for the sake of this spotlight, I'm just going to do it so you guys can see it real quick, and we'll let this thing start cooking up its presence here, right? So with this purity, it's going to cause a lot of radiation, and that's going to be bad, but I want to focus on the strength and efficiency stats right now, more so than purity. And now we've got a pretty decent crystal. It's got some good amount of strength and efficiency. Again, strength is the total RF that you'll get. Efficiency is the amount of RF per tick that you'll get. And then purity affects how much radiation this is going to cause. So you'll notice that this is going to generate 7,125 RF per tick. So much better. Let's go ahead and activate it. And hang on to your radiation monitor, because this is going to get bad. 50%? Yeah, radiation is going to spike like crazy. Oh boy, look at this radiation level. It's really bad. 20,000. 30,000. Oh man. Bad times are going to be had. As your radiation continues to increase, you'll get worse hunger effects, you'll start to get some slowness effects, and you'll even start corrupting the very earth around the generator, and it will be turned into a poisonous mess. Yeah, the radiation is pretty bad right now. I'm going to let this slow down and talk to you guys about how you can protect against radiation. So Deep Resonance offers dense obsidian, which the spent filter material that you get from filtering all the liquid crystals that you're doing is going to go ahead and be used to make this dense obsidian. You can also use obsidian, vanilla obsidian, which isn't quite as good. What this does is help to contain the radiation from your reactor. You can also use dense glass if you wish, which is made with obsidian and spent filter material. So let's go ahead and encase our generator with some dense obsidian. And I've now encased this room pretty nicely. Sweet. It should be noted that dense glass is slightly less efficient than dense obsidian at protecting from radiation leaks. However, it's definitely still better than regular obsidian. Cool. I'd recommend that you run some kind of control switch outside the room so that you can, turn on and off this reactor from outside. You'll notice that now there is no radiation at all. I just completely removed it all from there with a special command /dr clean radiation. Cheat command, by the way, so don't use that unless you want to cheat. Now I can activate. and we'll see that the radiation is pretty well contained in there. Now remember, this is a very impure crystal, but the amount of radiation spilling outside, pretty low, right? It's staying in like the thousands, the low numbers, right? Not terribly large amounts of radiation getting outside, and mostly because that crystal is so impure. Remember, it's around the 50 or 60% mark. But if we went inside and checked out the radiation in here, in the 65,000 range, right? So definitely a lot of radiation inside, not as much outside. Cool, right? And I think that's pretty much all you guys need to know in order to understand how to use deep resonance. Now, if you're a fan of RF control or RF tools, the same mods made by McJady, definitely look forward to those spotlights, because there's blocks in RF control, and that's a little like programming type mod that you guys have seen me play on Forgecraft. That one has some hooks directly into deep resonance that make automating crystals even easier. You also want to make sure to use maybe something to measure the amount of liquids in there. There's a bunch of stuff you can use from those two mods to help automate deep resonance a little bit. But for now, Darryl20 signing off. Hope you guys enjoyed checking out the Deep Resonance mod. Definitely a fun and interesting way to generate RF. You do get a lot of RF from these crystals. However, the resonant ore is pretty hard to find, and I've found that it's kind of hard to keep up with. So you don't want to use this as your main power source. I like to use it as like an emergency backup power source for when, you know, I need a large amount of power very quickly. But using it as your only source of power, you're going to have a lot of trouble keeping up with the demand of creating those crystals. And automating this whole production line of resonating ore into liquid crystal that's going to be useful for you can be a lot of fun. All right, guys, Darryl20 signing off. Take it easy.